Another hot summer is here. Do you know how much water your landscape needs? You might be surprised because less is more. Mandatory summer watering restrictions are in effect May through August, and that means no watering from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and never on Sundays. Slowly increase watering your grass from 3 to 4 days a week and only add more days if you need it. For drip irrigated plants and trees, 4 days a week is plenty. Find water-saving tips at snwa.com. SNWA is a not-for-profit water agency. Good morning. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. Today on CityCast Las Vegas, I'm here with writer and CityCast alumnus Scott Dickensheets and Nevada Current editor April Corbin-Gurnis, and we're discussing the robots used to clear homeless encampments, all the bills that have died this legislative session, and the closure of a beloved institution, Bahama Breeze. It's Friday, May 23rd. I'm Sarah Lohman, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Scott and April, welcome.
Hey. Welcome to me. Welcome to you and to Anthony.
Welcome to the world of Scott Dickensheets. I couldn't be more delighted to have you both here. So we kick off with a hot headline. We have been doing a hot ledge line, but legislature is winding down. We're also giving them a special feature today. But I just wanted to quickly round up a story which, have you heard about the chicken theft that happened outside of the city on last Friday?
No.
Where have I
been? Chicken theft?
Equally puzzled.
I've been cooped up. I have not heard of it.
Oh, Scott. You know, usually I would give David grief for that, but you get a special dispensation, and I'll say that I loved it. So Las Vegas Livestock, which is a farm in North Las Vegas, they're sort of famous for being a pig farm that uses food scraps from MGM and a sustainable system to feed the pigs. But they also have chickens, and they had 250 chickens stolen last weekend. So this happened last Friday night. The owners were there at 6:20. By the next sunrise, the chickens were gone. One of the owners said that there were no feathers and no sign of anything, so we ruled out animal predation. Being a rural girl myself, if it's coyotes, you can tell. It's messy. They're just disappeared in the middle of the night. She thinks it's someone who was familiar with the property and also knows how to handle chickens. So the owner said in a quote, "We fear for their welfare. We spend a lot of time raising our flock. So to think that someone grabbed them and now have no idea how they are being cared for, or even if they're alive, is one of the sadder parts of a theft like this." So it's really heartbreaking. The immediate monetary loss is about $5,000. Obviously, the long-term effects can be devastating. So if anyone out there saw anything unusual related to this theft, please contact the North Las Vegas Police Department.
$5,000 for 250 chickens?
It seemed low to me,
too.
That
seems low. Yeah, I was like, dang, chickens are worth more than that, aren't they?
Yeah, because also they're replacing them with chicks from the local hatchery, and those chicks have to grow up. You know, it's a huge investment in the cost of feed and welfare and livelihood, right? So $5,000 seemed very, very low.
Is there a chance they escaped, like Chicken Run?
Chickens? I've had chickens and they're domesticated animals want to be with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The chicken might not be your best friend, but it knows where home is, right? And they're flocking animals. So while Chicken Run is a documentary, it is real life circumstances. No, it seems like these chickens were heisted.
If nothing else, I hope it leads to the installation of some chicken cams so they can prevent this in the future.
All right. Well, praying for the safe return, genuinely, of these sweet chickens. So we're going to move on to another difficult topic. Scott, so this week there was a huge clean out of some of the wash tunnels that served as homeless encampments. And interestingly, robots were used as a part of this process. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Everybody seems to be focusing on the robots.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're imagining a flock of Terminators going in there.
I did.
And I assume that if the county had access to that kind of technology, they would use a platoon of T-1000s to do the work for them. But in fact, these robots, they just go into this tunnel area to gauge the amount of methane that's built up in there. This cleanup was in the vicinity of Maryland and Flamingo.
Mm.
And if you look at the area on Google Satellite, you'll see that there's about a block-wide portion of this wash that goes underground. So
Okay.
one has to assume that's where it is. And they've said, because of like the hazardous conditions in there, that county workers have not been allowed to go in to gauge the situation. So they sent, as part of this cleanup, they got all hazmated up. They got their methane sniffing robots, and then they just like cleared everyone out. The goal of the thing is to clean out the tunnels, and they're going to, over the course of the next year, refurbish that area, pave some portion of the wash, and presumably put up fencing to dissuade some of the homeless that they have dislodged. The larger part of the story, of course, is probably the fact that a bunch of homeless people or unhoused people were kicked out of the place that they'd been staying. And this was preceded by some, a county meeting at which residents complained about the impact of the unhoused people on their neighborhood, with also some expressing concern for what's going to happen to them now that they're being denied this place to temporarily shelter. So that's the sort of, where it stands at the moment.
Was there any sort of solution offered, or it was just get out and that's it?
Well, I mean, I guess solution offered in the sense that they had like help of Southern Nevada on site to help some of the displaced people deal with any issues they might have. But that's like the tiniest of Band-Aids you can put on the situation. And otherwise, no, I have seen no evidence of any kind of long-term solution to this problem. And this seems like, they're gonna disperse this population, but they're just gonna go somewhere else or eventually try and filter back.
I just wanted to add that Commissioner Tick Sager-Bloom at that meeting that you just mentioned, Scott, acknowledged that the navigation centers, which are like the homeless shelters that that the county sort of stood up recently to try and intake people who are on the streets and need an immediate place to go, are full. So where are they going to go? Where are they going to go?
So, April, I do want to bring it to you because, the bigger question, as you phrased, Scott, is like, are these cleanups or sweeps, as they're actually known, a solution or a Band-Aid? Because if you're kicking all of these people out of this area and they have nowhere to go, sure, you're going to put up a fence to stop them from coming back. But, what happens? Is this a solution even for the neighborhood's concerns?
No, I think Tick also acknowledged that they may just move into the immediate neighborhoods to find a new place. What other option do they have when shelters are full or they don't want to go to the, downtown to the courtyard, which has its own reputation? And you know what I mean?
Right.
It's not a long-term solution and it's not an immediate solution to anything, really.
What are we doing then? What are we doing, Scott?
Well, I think they're doing situationally, they'll do a sweep when there's something that needs to be done. There is that county ordinance against, public camping that was passed and has been, sort of fitfully and intermittently used. But when they sweep people, it's not toward a solution. It's just out of where they are. And if you read, there was a nice account of this in the RJ that noted that when these unhoused people were dislodged, they brought all their stuff with them. The cops showed up. They fear cops, so they fled. And then a Republic Services truck pulled up, or a garbage truck pulled up, and all their stuff got thrown away, except a few items that they could rescue. The story listed bikes and blankets and coolers. When you have nothing, these things are sort of these resources loom large in your life. If a bicycle is the only way you can get around, and now the county just threw it away, 5 minutes after you got rousted from your tunnel. That seems like a remarkably, unnecessary and some might even say cruel move to put on those folks after you've just kicked them out of their tunnel, early in the morning too. I believe, if I read correctly, the sweep started at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It seems like, especially here in Southern Nevada, a bike, a cooler, and a blanket is the difference between life and death if you are unhoused.
I believe that's absolutely true.
We were also talking yesterday to Michael M.J. Lyle, Nevada Current reporter, who was also at this meeting. And, what really struck him was that the people who occupy that neighborhood and own homes there are frustrated to the point by the presence of the unhoused that they are basically threatening violence against the unhoused people there. So how do we address their real concerns about the impact it has to property values, to them feeling safe in their neighborhood, while also acknowledging the humanity of these unhoused folks, because it feels like scooping up their belongings and putting it into a garbage truck is not acknowledging that humanity. April, what do you think? Is there a way to do both?
I feel like if I had the answer to that, I could run for office or something. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's not a problem that gets solved overnight. And we often focus on this aspect of the sort of homeless pipeline because it is immediate and it's in our face and it's, sort of jarring. But the issue is further upstream, right? There's the idea that there's no affordable housing. So the people in the middle class scoop up whatever the cheapest homes are. And then the people who need the cheapest homes have nowhere to go. So they're stuck there. And until we address all aspects of that pipeline, the people at the very bottom are going to be forgotten and they're going to be villainized. And, if our homeless shelters are filled with people who should be in transitional housing but aren't there because we don't have enough of that, then it just pushes everybody further and further out and into the places where people get the most mad at, which is the washes and the tunnels behind their house and things like that. So it needs to be a comprehensive, big strategy. And as much as the city and the county and the state has said that they're trying to do that, there's no proof that they're putting that amount of resources they need into fixing the entire problem. And I think that's where the focus needs to be. Because I understand that. I wouldn't want people, living behind my house. I live behind a wash, not in that neighborhood, but somewhere else. And I get it. But it's also, if you are mad at that, fix the underlying problems,
Yeah.
Yeah. In Southern Nevada, at least, if it comes down to a choice between property values and humanity, I think we know which is going to win. I remember when I was writing Hey Las Vegas for you folks at CityCast, the Hey Las Vegas newsletter, I would get periodic emails from people about the homeless situation. And one of them was, there was some person who was continually trying to revive Oscar Goodman's old idea of housing them out at the unused prison in Jean, as if putting them in a prison is an acceptable solution to the problem. But I think a lot of people at the knee-jerk level would be like, well, that's what we got to do. That's the most available thing to get them out of our way. And I think somewhere there's a middle ground.
Well, we have discussed the homeless crisis in the Valley many times on this podcast before. And as it is an ongoing problem, I'm sure we're going to end up discussing it again. But yeah, the result of the sweep doesn't make me feel good for sure. Beer, Barter, and Mall is a new concept where you can shop for antiques and art while you drink beer and wine. You can buy, sell, or barter your goods, services, and treasures. I actually got to stop in and check out this place before it even opened. It was so cool. It was like craft beer bar meets antique mall. I saw this amazing vintage pendulum lamp I wanted, and this other girl bought this brass tortoise cigarette holder. It was so cute. The space is nearly 10,000 square feet, and there's over 30 vendors in there, including antique vendors and local artists. Barter Mall was created because the rent in the Arts District is so expensive right now, and it's forced the antique malls and the art dealers out of the area. So art culture and community, it's just so important to downtown Las Vegas, so Barter is trying to do their part to make sure it's a place where artists will be able to continue to thrive. They're open 5 days a week right now, but by the end of the summer, they're going to be open 7 days a week. So check out barterlv.com to learn more, or hey, just stop on by, grab a beer, and do a little bit of shopping.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
So, April, as you know, I'm engaged in politics, but I get overwhelmed by the legislature. And so I understand that a number of bills that had been proposed this session have now come to the end. They've died. So you've been following it closely. So I would love a roundup of the bills that didn't make the cut this time around.
Yeah. So just to set the timeline for everybody who may not be following
Please.
it, I know there are now 10 days left until the end of the Nevada State Legislature's 2025 session.
Wow.
There are still hundreds and hundreds of bills that are snaking their way through the legislative building in Carson City, hoping to make it to Governor Lombardo's desk and survive his mighty veto pen. But today, Friday, is a big deadline day, so we're going to see, an unknown number of bills declared dead later today. And 1 week ago, there was another big deadline day in which 31 bills were declared dead. Not a huge number, but still, they're getting there. So the latest victims of the legislative deadline included a medical aid in dying bill, sometimes referred to as physician-assisted suicide. That's not the preferred term. That's a bill that was probably going to die anyway because Lombardo had promised to veto it if it made it to his desk. But nevertheless, still a sting for people who were very passionate about that. And that's legislation that has been introduced for multiple sessions now. Got all the way to the governor's desk last year. Didn't get as far this year. So I have no doubt that people will continue to propose that in future legislative sessions. Other lesser known ones that you might not have heard about, there was a bill to study the impact of excessive water use fines that are used here in the Valley. I'm not normally a huge fan of anything that's just studying an issue, but that would have made for some interesting conversations, I think, during the interim about people's massive yards and do they need water? Do they need grass in all of their acreage?
Yes.
There was also a bill, AB 119, that would have strengthened the ability of the state to crack down on paramilitary organizing efforts before they happen. Because right now the state can take action and law enforcement can get involved after they start doing something, after they show up armed to a protest or whatever, but not before. So they were trying to strengthen that. That bill died last week. Which, depending on your outlook and the state of everything, seems like a bad choice or maybe a good choice. Who knows? That was controversial, so it died. There was also a bill to establish a home insurance plan for homeowners who couldn't find traditional insurance, particularly because of growing wildfire concerns. That's another issue that people are super interested in across the state that met its fate last week. So.
This, I have to say, did not anticipate what a fascinating look into the culture of our state these dead bills would be. I had no idea. Like, that paints such a picture, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And for those who are interested, I would direct them to April's meticulously and humongously reported rundown of various bills in the Nevada Current, which is very useful, especially in that whole glimpse of our culture sort of way that you're talking about. There's just a mammoth number of bills. I think there were like almost 1,200 bills proposed, if I'm not mistaken. And so naturally, a lot are going to fall by the wayside. But to see April have list them all out, the ones that have the most dicey possibility of passing, really offers a picture of our state and its priorities.
So, Scott, since you've read over April's work, and I assume we're following the session as well, are there, is there one bill that you are really especially disappointed didn't make it through this session?
Well, you could point to a number of bills about landlord-tenant relations that I think would have been important, transparency and protections and so on, and some other housing bills and whatnot. But one particularly dear to my personal heart would be AB 219, which would have taken 1% of the state's live entertainment tax and routed it to the Nevada Arts Council, which is a perennially underfunded agency, and the state's arts could use all the support they can get. And it would have been a really great thing. And I was sad personally to see it die. And I know some of you out there in podcast land are going to say, well, that entertainment tax is generated by Cirque du Soleil, who are probably not going to get a Nevada Arts Council grant. But of course, the truth is that lots of Cirque people on stage and behind the stage do their own projects in the arts community. They're active in theater and art and dance. And so it would have been supporting some of the people who actually make the tax happen.
What a silly argument.
Yeah. And I believe that a lot of the NAC grants were also founded by the NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts, which now that funding has been pulled. So I, for one, as a I am an artist on mic, but also, as many of you know, I'm a writer and performer behind the scenes too. And I've operated under 2 different Nevada Arts Council grants, and they've made a huge difference in my life. So yeah, that one is a bummer. April, is there a bill that you're most disappointed in, or is there one that you think has a chance of revival in our next legislative session?
I'll highlight Assembly Bill 388, which is sponsored by Assemblymember Selena Rue Hatch. It would require private employers with more than 50 workers, as well as public employers, to provide paid family and medical leave, which is something that we do not have guaranteed here in the state. That bill is not officially dead. It is exempt from standard legislative deadlines, but it has been sitting in a budget committee for weeks now, and I think the general vibe is that it's not going to happen this session, especially with only 10 days left. I know a lot of people were watching that bill and hopeful about that bill, and if I put on my commentary hat for a second, in a legislative state and a legislative session like ours right now, where we are cash strapped and worried about trying to maintain services, bills like this, which would have required businesses to show appreciation and basic human decency for people who have cancer and need to take time off for treatment, or who have had a baby and need time to recover from major surgery, like a C-section, to bond with their children. It seems like in a session where we can't do a whole lot in terms of increasing resources, that this could have been something we could have done. So I think it's disappointing to see that fight is not going to continue this session. Again, we still have 10 days left. It might be resurrected and have a last breath, but from what I've heard, it's sort of on death watch for sure.
I just want to shout out the death of doing away with daylight savings as a bill. Oh my God. No, okay. On one hand, I was just in Arizona, and I feel like every time you're in Arizona, it's a real crapshoot as to what time it might be in proportion, in scale to the rest of the country and world. So I get that there's difficult things about being a sole state to do away with daylight savings. That being said, let's get rid of it. There's so many studies that say it's actually detrimental to our health in so many ways, not just our sleep schedule, but there are more car accidents the weeks after we change the clock. So I'm sad to see it go, but I know that we're basically waiting for California to do it first, which, sometimes we could be the cool kids setting trends. You know what I mean? Think about it, Nevada State Legislature. So just as a little quickie at the end, are there any unlikely survivors of this deadline that might become law?
I'll say I think there were a lot of people who thought that the film studio was going to die after the Economic Forum came out and said that our revenue is going down, that it would be too hard of an ask, but they're still moving that forward. So they're still trying. They got 10 days left. It hasn't sort of gone there yet, but the fact that that's still a conversation in a time where everybody is worried about massive Medicaid cuts and massive, revenue shortfalls and a possible recession is crazy to me, but it may happen. So we'll see.
All right. Well, this time next week, there will be some past bills. So you know that we're going to be covering it right here on CityCast.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities, so do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. 9.5 plus pH, now in cans.
Refreshing.
Made for every way you move.
Should I run a marathon?
Let's start with finishing that water. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant, now in a sleek can. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
So, last but not least, I've got some sad news. R.I.P. to Bahama Breeze, which closed its Las Vegas location on Thursday, May 15th. That was at Hughes Center Drive. Have either of you ever been to the Bahama Breeze on Hughes Center Drive?
Yes, I have.
That tells you what you need to know.
Yep.
I'll plead the fifth.
It was convenient.
It was there, and I went. Yeah, so I'm bringing it up because I do think this heralds something bigger. Obviously, I'm a food person, and so I thought it was fascinating. In that, okay, this restaurant operated for more than 2 decades. It's described as having, and Scott, you can confirm if this is true. This is via Eater, a vaguely Caribbean theme, indoor-outdoor seating, thatch roof details, and generic island outwork. Would you say that that's about
I'd say that's
that?
pretty spot on.
Yep. So this is the latest in a lot of closings, including Margaritaville, which closed in 2024, and then Senior Frogs shuttered at Treasure Island shortly after. And we've already experienced a massive TGI Fridays exodus. So it's like these restaurants that were known for like chips and salsa and margarita specials are all shuttering. And they're sort of like targeted at what I would call a like middle class, like affordable, but also perhaps a slightly older generation as well. Or like I would have gone there as a kid, right? And it seems like the times are sort of changing, maybe in what we want in dining. They had a heyday in the early 2000s, but this is something that's not just happening in Las Vegas. You know, obviously both Bahama Breeze and TGI Fridays are closing locations nationally. So if this is not where restaurants are trending anymore, what, as the three of us, as 2 millennials and a boomer, I believe that we are probably experts on Gen Z. So what do you think? So let's see the future. And what do you think is Gen Z's Bahama Breeze? What's next?
As you said, I am not an expert. I am like millennial through and through, if you couldn't tell. I'm also incredibly uncool. So let me just say that. But with that in mind, it seems to me like... It seems to me that like Gen Z is a lot less brand loyal and sort of more about the moment and like very into like trends and experiences. And I think
what did you say? Brand boil?
No.
Brand loyal.
Brand loyal. Yes.
Got it. They're not going to be like a Bahama Breeze and be like, I love consistency. They
I
want to
think
feel life alive.
Yeah, I think they're really much more into like, we're in like a TikTok generation of like viral moments and like, hot flashes of interest or whatever. So like, I don't know if this is still going on, but like a few months ago, it was sort of this trend to go into Chili's and get their mozzarella sticks and do the mozzarella cheese pull.
I mean, that sounds fun because you do get to eat mozzarella sticks at the end.
Because you get to eat mozzarella sticks, but I guess like at Chili's, if you pull them apart, they look really cool a lot of the time or whatever. It was like a thing. It sounds silly, but go look it up. It's fine. It was a thing.
I mean, and Chili's isn't closing restaurants.
And
so,
Chili's isn't closing restaurants.
There's still a Chili's in Las Vegas, so that does say something.
So, and I actually came to this conclusion because my husband is a teacher, so he... high school teacher, so he talks to a lot of young like teenagers and stuff. And I asked him what chain restaurants they like, and they said Chili's. And he was like, he kind of said it like a joke, so I don't know if it was joking or not. And then I Googled it, and like Chili's is like on the rise. Like Chili's has seen some movement or whatever. So it's all about the viral moment.
Got to make those sticks stretchier. That's the key to success. What do you think, Scott Dick and Sheets? You have a large family that touches all the generations. What are the kids up to?
Well, I think April hit it right on the nose. I think they have a few favorites, but it's usually because of a dish or a thing that they might be, like they might be like hungering for in that moment. But I think it is about the sort of spur of the moment, decision. And also, like all of these restaurants fall into, a cultural category that I've seen called premium mediocre. And I think, there will never be. There will never be a shortage of restaurants filling that category. So they'll move on to whatever seems like cool the next time around. But I don't know that there'll be a lot of people like mournfully looking back at their Bahama Breeze memories.
Yeah. Yes. I thought since I know Gen Z is also drinking a lot less, so they're not going to sit there for the margarita special. That being said, martinis are having such a huge comeback right now. So there's some, some alternate things going on there, which is martinis are just alcohol with more alcohol. But I thought that maybe honestly, the cannabis lounges were going to take over these spaces where you could go and both imbibe cannabis and imbibe a cannabis cocktail. I do think that was more targeted at millennials, and they are closing. Like the big
Right.
one that just opened, a year ago behind the Strat is no more. The dispensary is still there, but not the lounge. So the idea was like, why isn't Vegas more like Amsterdam? We got the license change, and then it doesn't seem like we've quite hit on the formula to make them successful. So I'm actually wondering, as we're looking at, bigger changes in Vegas, they're shrinking their casino floors. They're making it more about experiences. And again, this is to cater more to millennials. Gen Z still doesn't have the amount of disposable income to really see how it's going to impact Las Vegas. That being said, I am going to ask you to be soothsayers because I feel like since the 2000s and perhaps the 90s, carrying around a melting yard-long frozen daiquiri has been such a sign of strip culture. Like you get one, you walk, you get a hangover 15 minutes later because you're standing in the sun. So if we're assuming that those sort of like vaguely tropical things and drinking are going away, what should replace the yard-long daiquiris on the Strip?
Well, I was hoping for a yard-wide daiquiri just to see some more entertaining pedestrian interactions on the Strip.
I would just assume you could turn it the other direction, but you just want something really flat and wide.
And very ungainly. I think that would be a lot of fun to watch. Now, I'm not a drinker, so I don't really have the tools to prognosticate this, but I will say, like, I would like to see a martini strained through one of Elvis's old white jumpsuits, take off as a Strip, when you can have the pheromones of the king. Come on, let's have that.
Yeah, that's like $1,000 steak in the golden briefcase level. Like the $1,000 martini is strained through the crotch on Elvis's jumpsuit. I do feel like there's a market for that. Someone will call it literally iconic.
You know what's having a big moment is like dirty sodas or whatever, like those soda shops where
coffee in it.
Well, you can have some of them have coffee in it, but also just like where it's like Dr. Pepper with coconut syrup and added flavors and stuff, like Swig and Pop soda. Like it's a huge thing. It's
Fizz.
usually in Utah. Fizz is another one that's in town.
That's what I was just going to say. This is clearly very, very Mormon because, as it was directly explained to me, we eat a lot of sugar because we have nothing else. And I did not anticipate this, but the Gen Zs, they are acting like Mormons.
Yeah, they're more conservative.
They want to be like a trad wife. They're really into sugary things. So,
but I think we should, if you're going to get rid of the yard long daiquiris, excuse me, that you should just replace them with those soda shops. But to make it more Vegas and to sell it, you can just shoot like a shot. You know what I mean? Like give me a shot of whiskey and then coconut tabs
or CBD.
Dr. Pepper thing or whatever at that.
I suspect that even so quickly, like after marijuana was legalized, now it's too like mom needs to calm down for bed gummies, like for Gen Z to think it's cool. Yeah, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think we should just go full Mormon. So I support yard-long Jell-O salads, no alcohol, just Jell-O salads, and yard-long funeral potatoes. I want to walk down the Strip with a giant daiquiri container filled with cheesy potatoes topped with cornflakes and a spoon. Nothing would make me happier.
Sign me up. Co-signed.
Thank you both so much for being here. Enjoyable and informative and delightful. And what a way to start my day. Thanks, April and Scott.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me on.
So we've got a couple of local business shout outs today from CityCast Las Vegas Neighbors. That's our membership program here. And this is a chance we get to do to herald some of the amazing businesses in the Valley. Nancy H. wants to shout out Little Avalon, an island-themed cafe. Interesting. This is the new Bahama Breeze. She calls it a neighborhood oasis and says you can stay for as long as you want and not feel rushed. Oh, I really love that. Next up, Amber R. says, shout out to the Lone Mountain Little League. Amber says everyone involved, from coaches to volunteers, work tirelessly to give the kiddos a healthy, safe, fun environment. I love that. So thank you so much, Nancy and Amber. And if you're a CityCast neighbor, you too can shout out your favorite local business. And if you're not a neighbor yet, you should join today at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. And And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. Our producers this week were Sonia Cho Swanson, Leila Mohammed, and Natalie Rivera. Our newsletter editor is Rob Katchelreese, and our roving newsletter editors this week were Elizabeth Kama and Adrian Gonzalez. Our hosts are David Figler and me, Sarah Lohman. Music is by OG Moose, Epidemic Sound, All the Kimonos, and Alexandra Woodward, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. We record this show on the traditional homelands of the Nuuvi, the Southern Paiute people. If you enjoyed this show, why not tell a friend? Rate this show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Las Vegas. We'll be back Tuesday morning with more news from around the city. Take care.